So thank you for joining our first webinar for 2022, covering the key trends for legal finance and accounting. So just a brief quick introduction about myself. My name is Samaya. I've been here for a couple of years with Ambition, specialised within the legal finance sector. And Michelle, would you like to briefly introduce yourself as well?
Yeah, great. Thank you. So I'm Michelle. Some of you may know of me, some may not. So hi to everyone. I've been at Ambition for just over 17 years, always recruiting into the legal finance space.
Yep, thank you, Michelle. So with this webinar, in terms of the results that we've received, I'll go through that information as well. You might have already previously joined a couple of our webinars. Last year we had 2, so we generally do about 2 webinars every year. This is just bring up the rest of the team. So this is the rest of the team. You've probably, again, if you've been with us, so it's nice to see some familiar individuals, but I won't assume that everyone knows exactly what we're doing, who we are, if it's your first time as well. So we specialize within the legal finance space, and these are the rest of our colleagues, and the opportunities we generally support can be very wide range, as some of you might be aware of, all the way from your entry junior to a very senior individuals, and that can be across the permanent, interim and contract space as well. So this is the team. In terms of reaching out to myself and Michelle, feel free, I'll put this slide up again at the end of today so you can jot down the details if you'd like. We are also sending through a recording, so you can have a look at the information of this as well later on. So to start off, this is what we will be covering today. So the agenda of what we'll be going through. I appreciate this might just be more of a summary, because we will probably be here all day if we covered every single thing, but we thought these topics were the most hot topics at the moment, quite important, quite a few questions that we've been receiving from all ends, and therefore we thought we'd include these. There is a Q&A section right at the end, so if you do have any questions, feel free to stick them through into the chat, and we'll come to that towards the end as well. So this is the survey. So the way the Legal Finance and Accounting Trends webinar is, or the details that we have, is from the results that we received from a survey that, again, we run twice a year. This includes HR professionals that we work with within law firms, and those that we're in contact with that we receive jobs from as well. Finance leaders, so your finance directors, managers, your hiring managers, those that you know, individuals, if they're working in firms as employees, they'd probably be reporting to them, so receive results from them as well. And then also legal finance and accounting professionals, so whether you are previous candidates in the past, prospective candidates that we're currently supporting as well, or even individuals who are just working within the legal finance or have been professions within this sector. The survey is a mix of US and UK firms, all the way from your large international firms to your more smaller boutique niche firms as well. So we've had quite a large response in terms of the candidate survey that we've sent across, around 1,000 plus responses. Moving forward, I'll hand you over to my colleague Michelle, who will start off the details on the data on the results.
Thanks, Samaya. So the first slide was looking at trends in pay. So this is what our results from our employees. So we asked, have you had a promotion in the last 12 months or a pay rise? So a good number, 65% have, 35% no. So 35% is still a fair number that haven't yet, but certainly on a positive 65% have had reviews, promotion or a pay increase. The percentage increase slide, wanted to make a couple of additional comments on that. If you look at the bottom, it mentions 26% haven't received a pay rise. That is likely that they had a review, but haven't actually had an increase in salary. And at the end of the day, that can happen. I guess the sort of advice we would give is just make sure that you've had a really clear and constructive meeting with your manager to, if you haven't had a salary increase, to sort of understand your future plans and what your goals are to achieve that next time around. The percentage increase, so this is what people have achieved in their roles. So internally, certainly, as I'm sure many of you are aware, during the pandemic, lots of firms, there were pay freezes and delays with reviews. So as expected, there's definitely been some increases in levels on the salary side. We normally see sort of inflation at 3%, but there's definitely, as you can see on here, people going above that, up to 5% and then 6% onwards. So some positive increases there in salaries. We are still finding bigger increases if people are moving jobs. Typically, we've noticed sort of 15 to 20% uplifts when people are changing roles. We asked our line managers, have you given your team a salary review in the last 12 months? 95% yes, 5% said no. So again, really high. Obviously, there are some that, like we've said on the previous slide, a salary review doesn't actually necessarily mean it's going to make an increase in your pay, but certainly these conversations have happened, which certainly I think is very important. I know from speaking to a lot of people that quite a lot of these reviews were put on hold during the pandemic. So it's really positive that these meetings are taking place and sort of goals are being set with individuals. Thank you. So next slide, we looked at remote working, obviously a hot topic at the moment. So we asked our employees, would you consider roles with a lower salary if they were 100% remote? 31% said yes, 69% said no. I guess what we can sort of advise you, what we're seeing our end, we so far haven't had that many client requests for 100% remote roles. We've had literally just the odd position, but certainly we've probably been asked it more from candidates and job seekers as opposed to clients. So it will be interesting how this pans out. Certainly, following on the second slide, would you be prepared to work in other locations in the UK if you only needed to travel to an office once or twice a week? 58% said yes, 42% no. So I think certainly we can all see with these hybrid working patterns that many firms have now adopted, it's definitely giving employees and clients a lot more flexibility with the work pattern. Where we've generally seen more flexibility with clients, it's when they've already got existing offices set up and with a finance presence. So far we definitely tend to have that. Obviously it makes sense. There are clients with other offices, but if the finance is all in London, then it's often more the case that there's a preferred to have people in the London office with their manager. But as I say, firms that have got offices where there's already, even if it's a smaller finance presence, we've definitely seen a bit more flexibility. Perhaps they may say their preference is London, but they would look at other office, or their preference could be Birmingham, but again, there would be flexibility. So that's certainly something that we've seen more of. I guess the key thing to mention, I have had some individuals looking for roles where they're perhaps based in London at the moment and the role's in London and the client's looking at 3 days a week, but the individual is looking to move further afield. Certainly when that's come up in the interview, there has been a bit of resistance from clients, just more thinking, you know, if this isn't happening at the moment, they're not doing this commute, is it sustainable for everybody longer term? So I think certainly that's something for people to think about. It could be attractive. I've only got to go in the office 2 or 3 days a week, but if you haven't done that commute and journey, is that something you're going to be prepared to do longer term? I guess a point on salaries, time will really tell whether salaries are reflected due to location, and if so, what the difference is. it's still quite early for us to comment a lot further on that. I guess what we have seen so far, the odd remote role that we have worked, there has been a difference in a lower salary as opposed to the salary they were prepared to pay in the office. We've also seen variations regionally as well.
Thank you, Michelle. So touching on flexible working, just following up on what Michelle mentioned around remote working. So this was a question we asked employees, so individuals that are currently working in law firms within the finance and accounting teams. So how many days a week would you ideally like to work in the office? There's a large percentage, as you can see, about 73% that would be looking to work in the office 2 days or less. The next slide would go on to looking at line managers and firms. But this kind of showcases where individuals or where employees are actually thinking about placing their flexible working days, what they've actually thought has been working, potentially if they've already started that. There might be a small percentage that could be looking to go back into the office, potentially quite a lot more than 4 to 5 days a week. And that could also be, we've had individuals that are more on the junior basis level, or even those that are starting a new role, a brand new, to understand the policies, the development, the training, understand the culture. They might be looking to go into the office a couple more days in comparison to what the firm-wide or team-wide policy might be initially, just to get that training first of all, and then potentially reduce down to what everyone else is possibly doing in the firm as well. This slide, as mentioned, moves on to the question that we asked line managers. So those that are finance leaders that we've surveyed, finance managers, those that might be managing yourselves if you're currently within a team. And they have mentioned around the number of days that they expect their staff to be back in the office is looking more around the 3 days. So that's about 47% looking at 3 days in comparison to 19% of employees that were looking to come into the office 3 days a week. What we are seeing is that you can get 1 or 2 days at the moment. There is a little bit of a transition where some firms are saying, come in 1 day a week, we'll have a look at how that is going, and potentially in a couple of weeks' time, couple of months' time, that is looking to possibly get increased to 2 or 3 days. So we wouldn't be surprised if some firms right now are doing 1 or 2 days, but then have the increase and it becoming a little bit more of a sector-wide norm, where majority of firms are looking to do 3 days a week in the office. And what our advice would be from both ends, for line managers would be, well, considering what employees are saying, looking to do more or so 2 days a week or less, is kind of giving that a bit of a thought in terms of bringing in talent or even retaining the current employees. And what we would say in terms of employees or prospective individuals that are looking in the market, candidates, etc., job seekers, we would then say having a look, keeping that open mind that potentially if a firm is currently saying 1 or 2 days, or if my current firm is saying 1 or 2 days, is there a possibility of that increase if most firms in the market are saying 3 days, because that can limit the options or the opportunities that are out there and that are currently on offer. Also bearing in mind there might be differences between HR and firm-wide policies compared to the line managers and the team. So HR firm-wide, they might be having their teams coming in a certain couple of days a week in business services or wider firm policy, but then finance and accounting, the managers might have specific days that they would ideally like their team to come in as well. Just bearing that in mind and asking these questions if you were speaking with your manager during catch-ups, or asking these questions if you're in an interview, that what is it that the current team are actually looking to do, and what kind of days are they doing. In the other section, as you can see, some firms are still putting together their policies. They haven't come to a conclusion yet, so still in discussion. Some firms are doing a variation. So for example, 10 days a month is when the teams are coming into the office as well. This slide moves on to a couple of questions we also asked based around flexible working and the efficiency and fully remote roles to line managers. So on the whole, as you can see, flexible working has been quite successful. About 49% of line managers are considering to have their employees be based fully remote. We were really surprised by those results. We weren't really expecting that, because I guess you could say that right now we're not receiving as many of the roles that are being based fully remote. As Michelle mentioned, some of them, there's a couple that are out there that are fully remote, but there's not many that we're receiving that are saying 100% we're happy for the individuals in the team to be based fully remote. So it could be something that's being passed down more from line managers, but possibly not something that the firm as a policy is currently looking at, or is currently doing. So that's where the difference could potentially be. Some of the roles that are possibly fully remote, or that line managers would be open to having them as being fully remote, could be non-partner facing, or those that are not business partnering, where you would be required to come in, meet the partners, potentially clients, and have that sort of face-to-face meeting. Those are the possible ones that could be based fully remote. And like Michelle mentioned a couple of slides ago, there's also understanding the extent of maybe how that might affect the salary as well, because there are opportunities that we receive where there's a slight difference in salary when it comes to being based in the office and being based fully remote. But overall, the legal sector looks like flexible working is definitely here to stay, which is a good positive improvement as well. But we're yet to see to what extent that is, what policies firms have. Are there any changes in the next 6 to 12 months on those policies, and what it is that the finance and accounting team are doing within law firms as well.
Fabulous. So this slide, we asked our employees what their priorities would be. They were able to pick 3 areas, so hence why it doesn't add up to 100%. So the top 3 areas that came out, flexible working, I'm sure none of you are surprised. Salary, obviously, always comes up as one of the top priorities. And like I've mentioned, many didn't have a review, or potentially just a small increase during the pandemic. Training also appeared as the 3rd highest. So I think that's, a positive message. Again, it shows potentially what I've heard from some individuals, that obviously it makes sense, training did happen online, but certainly there's perhaps been a bit less of that. It was, at the beginning, a bit of, let's be honest, us all surviving and suddenly all working from home, which we weren't used to. So kind of just making sure the day job was done. So certainly positive that, again, it shows that it is a focus for individuals that perhaps haven't had as much training and development in the last couple of years. So yeah, that's definitely up there with being a real priority for individuals. So I think certainly good if you're a client to obviously see what these priorities are, what the individuals are looking for. Certainly, as we know as well, if you're not in the office, you're probably not learning as much from colleagues. So again, there's that benefit with now having returned to the office to have that training from colleagues. Technologies come up 38%, so really high. Again, I think we've all realised and adapted, but sort of technology is really key. We need the tools if we're going to be in this hybrid working. We need to have quick systems and efficiencies. So certainly it's almost even more important now that we've got these effective systems. Mentioning just a couple of other points, diversity and inclusion, we were actually a bit surprised that that was only 8%. Certainly that's definitely increased in surveys over the last couple of years when we've run these reports. People wanting to know more what firms are doing insofar as diversity and inclusion, what their policies are, etc. An observation we found, it's quite often first, second jobbers. It seems to be quite common that they're asking us or looking on firms' websites. We've generally found some of the more sort of mid to senior, more experienced, individuals, it's sort of come up less. So it certainly seems to be some of the new employees into this world, the new job seekers, that's sort of a big focus for them. So I think that's important for clients to realize that. I guess what it really shows is more than ever, it is about the whole package. As you can see, I mean, of course, salary is up there, but certainly there's some really other big percentages, benefits, etc., bonuses. So certainly, I think what we're finding as well is the overall package that people are after. It's the career development, the culture, the training, salary, technology, what system are they on, what plans have they got. So certainly that's what we're seeing. You know, people are really wanting the overall package when they're choosing to change positions. We also looked at sort of hiring trends, asking our clients, what are you going to be doing as a firm in 2022 to attract more candidates? Certainly, again, yeah, flexible working, very key, which is great because that's what our job seekers are after. Salary on here as well, increasing salary bandings. Interesting on that, we've seen slight increases in salaries, but there's not been a huge overhaul insofar as bandings, which at the moment, so whether that changes moving forward. But yes, there's definitely been areas where, you know, expectations have changed, and clients having to push up bandings slightly. But has it been, as I say, been a big overhaul? Not at the moment. Diversity and inclusion, yes, we're definitely noticing that with clients. 32% have said that's definitely on their agenda. We've noticed that insofar as clients asking us for what we're doing in partnering them with attracting individuals, what are our policies, and a lot of firms putting a lot of investment into this area, including talking about it more on their websites, potentially in their job descriptions. So yeah, we're definitely seeing that's a big focus, and I'm sure you guys as well in your current firms. We've added this slide in here because we wanted to show the number of resignations in finance teams in the last 6 months, really just to show why the market is so busy at the moment. It's quite shocking, really, the number. I mean, 54% of finance teams have had resignations, and we've included up to 7 resignations in some teams. 46% said no. So I guess what it's showing is it's positive that there is a lot more confidence in the market now. People are prepared to move. A lot of people naturally sat tight during the pandemic, but certainly there is that real confidence for people to move, advance their careers, etc. So yeah, it definitely shows why we're so busy at the moment with the number of vacancies. Interesting slide. We asked our employees, you know, if you're currently employed, how long do you intend to remain in the position before moving firms? This was a real eye-opener for us. If you have a look at the graph, it's basically showing that 4% are currently looking, 11% planned to look in the next 6 months, and 6 months to a year, another 25%. So that actually adds up to just over 40% that are either looking or planning to look within the next year. So that's a quarter of individuals. So, I mean, that is really, really high. And I guess the advice we'd obviously say, you know, if you are a hiring manager, it means you need to definitely factor that into your planning. It's not just looking at additional roles that you might have in your team, but also being aware, you know, that there could well be the need for hires from a replacement perspective. I guess the other positive, if you are a job seeker, that also means that will create roles internally where you are. So perhaps in the past, if there hasn't been that much movement and perhaps you've wanted to stay where you're working, but there haven't been the opportunities internally, it certainly looks like that will create some more opportunities internally. The slide regarding whether you'd be happy to attend an interview face-to-face, 78% said yes, 20% said at second or final stage, and just over 1% said no. Certainly, what we're finding, to give you a heads up, over the last few weeks, we've certainly noticed it. There's definitely more of an appetite to see individuals in person. What we're tending to find, is a bit of a balancing act, because you've got clients potentially only in the office 3 days a week and candidates interviewing the same. So it's trying to mirror the same days. So what we're tending to find, a lot of clients, they're preferring to do an online interview for the first stage, and potentially at second stage or a coffee meet in person. So I guess be prepared for that. Certainly it's a lot easier, I get that, diary wise, to attend an interview online. But yeah, there's definitely a bit more of an appetite. And I think certainly it's a positive thing if you're looking to change jobs, to sort of have seen the offices and met, your potential new manager in person. So it's a positive thing for you as a job seeker and as a hiring manager.
Thank you for that, Michelle. So moving on to this slide, this was a question that we asked our clients. The reason we've included this slide was just to give a bit of an understanding around potentially a little bit around last year, touching on that as well. If you have been in our previous webinars, you've probably seen this question being asked before as well. So this was around additional headcount during 2021. Again, picking up on why there might be, as Michelle mentioned, the market being really busy right now, or sort of end of last year picking up at that time. So as seen from the previous slides, the large percentage of resignations, which meant that in 2020 at that time there were quite a few replacement hires, but also there's also been quite a nice mix around replacement and new hires, and these numbers definitely from our end has been better than 2020. This slide and question is more about this year, so reflecting on what happened last year, the additional hires, replacement or new hires that were done in firms, and what are the plans now that we've asked for hiring in 2022. So replacement hires is always going to be a thing in the market, as people will potentially move around, and then we will require backfills, or there will be that volume where the teams will require someone to come in and support them. So what was interesting and maybe unexpected, I guess, from our end, as being within the legal finance space for a very long time, is the additional headcount, that there's just about more than 64% that would be looking to have an additional headcount. So growth roles, new opportunities within the finance team. And this generally in the past has been more, as you've seen in the previous slide as well for 2021, has been more around replacement hires, not necessarily new hires on additional headcounts. So many of these roles that we've noticed, for example, I'm sure you've seen maybe in the market around pricing departments, brand new roles that are picking up in some of these larger firms as well. We'll touch upon these specific skills in demand and opportunities and departments in a couple of slides. But those type of opportunities where firms haven't got that team at the moment, haven't got a commercial or pricing team, they are looking to have that additional headcount. That's where these growth roles are possibly coming in those departments. But also due to maybe COVID in the last couple of years, where hiring was minimal when it came to additional headcount, like Michelle mentioned, we were just going through the day-to-day, the year, and it wasn't as predictable in 2020 as we can now see that we're going back into the office and having a bit of that new sort of normality, hopefully. Right now, firms are expanding their teams. They want to be market leaders. They want to go ahead with their clients and do what is required, whether it's setting up specific things within kind of looking at the competitors in the market. So the job levels from our end, I guess we would say, is definitely going, or has gone back to 2019, which is again positive news on all ends, just seeing how the market is. And quite a few of those roles are also new roles, additional headcounts as well. So it's quite interesting to see how this is slightly changed or shifted from compared to last year to now looking at plans for hiring this year. It is quite a bit around additional headcount in comparison to potential replacement opportunities. So this slide is around skills in demand. So which of the following departments do the hiring managers anticipate recruiting in? And this, again, questions that were asked to our finance leaders. I'll spend a couple of minutes in this slide, as it's quite essential. There's quite a few different departments there. I appreciate some of it might not be as relevant to everyone because you might specifically specialize in one thing. So if there's any follow-up questions on this, we're more than happy to cover that as well. So just looking at the main large sort of teams within billing and revenue, I guess that's always been a large team within legal finance. It's a large part of the firms, just providing that support. In terms of the revenue roles that we've seen, it's been quite a mix from junior all the way to your mid senior opportunities, but quite a few revenue opportunities have now moved on to the more salary bracket of up to 50k in comparison to maybe in the past. So they are becoming a little bit more senior in terms of the individuals that they're looking for and the positions that they have available in the teams. And quite a few firms that I have been or am currently supporting are looking to have more than one individual in the team, whether it's a replacement or a growth role. So there is that continuous movement within that. In revenue as well, the roles we've seen are very much all-rounded. So you do have the WIP side of things, a partner-facing. Some firms are looking at individuals that are quite comfortable or have had experience in those type of partner-facing opportunities. But then also it's a mix of billing as well. So you may potentially have an opportunity where you're doing parts of the revenue billing and doing the full cycle from the start to end with specific partners. So you've got the understanding of each of the clients, each of the cases that they're also working on. The couple of other interesting departments that we've seen that have had an increase was also around e-billing. So I'm sure you've seen opportunities like that potentially come up, as well as billing roles as well. But e-billing has definitely increased, as we've also had feedback from firms where their clients are looking to increase this in their teams, in the work that they currently have. So because of that, then the teams are required to have a few additional e-billing headcounts as well there. The skill set is also quite niche in this, so it's quite difficult to find those within legal finance who already have that e-billing experience, especially if the firm have just set that up as something brand new in their department and team. So what is happening is there's individuals who might be currently in billing roles looking to specialize within e-billing, gaining that experience, moving into those firms and supporting them. When it comes to a more sort of mid-senior seniority level, where firms haven't had as many e-billers or are looking to set that up as something that's new in their firms, that's where they might be bringing in someone who has already had that experience. But if it is already set up, we are seeing it's more on the level where they're open to juniors potentially coming from a billing background, who are going to possibly specialize in the e-billing, as that's increasing as a demand from clients as well in firms. The other increase we've also noticed is around pricing or commercial orientated roles as well. This has always been in legal in the last couple of years. It has been increasing, especially last year. There's been quite a few opportunities this year where they've been, like I mentioned in a couple of slides previously, where they are brand new departments. With pricing for some firms is still quite new. They may just be starting this up again to be market leaders, to have the right rates, to be able to support their clients as well as their partners on that side as well. Generally what we see in sort of large international firms or larger firms, or even your top 20, top 50, this is an opportunity or a department that is definitely growing. In your larger firms where it is already set up, they tend to look at recruiting pricing analysts, so individuals that can come in and be able to do this position at a at sort of a mid-senior level. The more medium sized firms, more mid-tier, or those that are looking to start this up as a department from scratch, they are looking at your more senior specialist individuals that already have gained that pricing experience for some time in the legal sector. But also, as I've mentioned, this is also a niche area. It's quite difficult to find those with the pricing experience in legal. There's also firms that have looked at wider professional services, so within your accountancy practices, Big Four backgrounds as well, who have experience in business partnering or have experience in some sort of analyst type of position, but also different sectors like supply chain, logistics, aviation. There's been an increase there as well, finding individuals from different backgrounds to come in and to support within legal. With this, what we've also noticed as there's also been a increase in opportunities for potential revenue controllers who have had that experience with matter profitability and potentially setting up rates, any financial modeling, reporting. Again, if the firm is looking for just legal sector experience, there are some individuals that have moved from those opportunities as a revenue controller into a pricing role and continued their career there as well. So that's also been an option that we've seen in the market, and also an increase in more senior opportunities in pricing. So head of departments pricing, head of commercial, those type of roles within firms has also increased, other than your pricing analyst, pricing specialist, managerial positions as well. So with the other point I wanted to touch upon was also systems. As Michelle mentioned a few slides previously, where employees are looking at having good technology within their firms, where we've had this good mix of flexible working, working from home, working in the office now, especially with this current transition. Firms might not have had many or had projects of upgrading in the last couple of years because of the whole remote working situation. Now, as people are coming back into the office, they can bring these projects back to how they may have wanted to initially start them pre COVID period. So systems definitely has been an increase, and we'll go into a bit more detail on systems specifically in a moment. Michelle will cover that as well. But what we've seen is that it has become more project based, which has increased more contract opportunities and work for individuals, which can tend to come with the salary a banding as well. If it's a contract role, it is based on it is a project, and they are looking for a specialist. The salary tends to be higher potentially in those opportunities. But also it's less business as usual and more technology focused. So hybrid roles where you've got a combination of finance and technology instead of just finance systems. And that's where we've also seen the change in these opportunities as well. And again, as it is a niche department, there's not many out there who have the specific large system experiences, implementations. Some firms are looking potentially within wider professional services, where they've supported in a large system implementation, or even if they are considering legal sector, only legal sector, then they are potentially looking at individuals with backgrounds in revenue or specifically billing, where they have supported with testing, project work or have had upgrades in their team or in their firm, and they've taken that step to support them. So there are those individuals that can, again, if they're looking to specialize in systems, can go on to a systems role from a transactional background as well.
So we asked our clients, do you have plans to upgrade your system in 2022? 38% said yes, 62% said no. I mean, certainly over the last few years, there's definitely been recent upgrades. Yes, a lot were put on hold during the pandemic, but still positive that 38% are doing reviews. I mean, it's come up in the previous slide that, you know, a focus on technology from being an employee and as a client. So yeah, 38% are looking to upgrade. This could, like Samaya touched on, have an impact on the number of contract roles that we may get, where they tend to be more project roles. Something that may impact, we've definitely found when firms are doing systems upgrades, they may move some of their current staff over to the systems project and then backfill those roles, which can also create contract opportunities. Certainly for some of the more junior systems roles, again, there is a shortage of people at that level. So we have found that can create some opportunities for individuals if firms are potentially looking at someone with legal finance experience, has worked on different systems, that maybe is looking to potentially move their career into a systems role. We have seen some firms having to look at those avenues and train someone up almost that is keen to develop their career in a systems role, just where there is a shortage of people at that level. So I guess, again, if you're a client and it is more on the junior and you've got a good team that would be able to support that individual, that potentially is a talent pool you could consider. We're still seeing the overriding majority of systems. The most popular ones are the Elite 3 and Aderant. We also asked our clients, have you recently invested in any reporting tools? So yeah, 53% said yes. We've listed a few, for example, some of the sort of systems, but particularly we've come across Power BI. So certainly following on from what Samaya said, in some of the sort of analytical and pricing roles where we've had an increased demand, certainly is a positive message, a message basically firms are investing, they need to provide the tools. It's an exceptionally competitive market, as you all know, and just providing these analysts and pricing individuals with the best tools to be able to provide their clients and internally the most relevant information to be so competitive. These teams, pricing analysts, have grown so much over the last few years, these really value add roles. So certainly positive, we're coming across that where clients are asking if people have got experience of these tools. Sometimes it isn't essential because they're actually just developing them themselves, but it's just, again, a positive that if somebody was going into those roles, you're likely to come away with experience of other reporting tools. So having presented the data, we wanted to give you some advice for job seekers. So I'll just touch on a few points that we came up with. Like we've said, it's an exceptionally busy market. So our advice would be, you know, if you do decide to look, just really think hard and do a bit of preparation and have your objectives really clear. You know, why are you looking? Is it the right time for you? What is it you're actually looking for? A key thing, you know, have you explored opportunities internally? Like I've touched on that, you know, there is definitely going to be movement according to what you guys are telling us within the next year with resignations. So, you know, are there any opportunities internally? You know, have you had your recent review with your manager? Are you having open dialogue with them about, you know, your career plan, etc.? So I think definitely think really real and hard on that, because often we have people approach us and perhaps they haven't really thought about that, or, you know, there's that, yeah, oh, we've never had that many movement in the team, but, you know, really do speak to your managers about what the plans are for the team. So at least when you do decide to search, you've already explored that. So I think just certainly be open with your objectives. What are your motivators? Just give it some real clear thoughts. Being proactive with your development. You know, there's a lot of information out there, and for example, research that we've compiled in the market, salary guides, getting your CV up to date, you know, making sure it's the best version that you can make it. Sometimes we have individuals that potentially, like Samaya touched on, they could be in revenue control and they're open to staying in revenue control, but might also be keen to explore a more commercial pricing role. And like we touched on, there are some clients that would consider that. So it could be they have two versions of their CV. So one focused more, if it was an opportunity in revenue, and one focused on the more commercial analytical part of their revenue role. And if they've had any exposure to rates, pricing, etc., to just show more of a focus on that side. So yeah, just being proactive and sort of open-minded. Often people think salary and promotion, that would meet their needs, but sometimes actually a sideways move can benefit you. So I think it's just taking the time to sort of have clear objectives and be proactive. Keep an open mind. You know, we see job descriptions come from clients. Some of them haven't been updated for a while. So, you know, you might need to explore it further from an interview perspective, or speak further to your recruitment specialist, just to sort of make sure that it could well be the right opportunity for you. I guess with all of this, it's kind of, if you can, you really want to give it a long, hard think if you are looking, and sort of start looking before potentially you dislike where you are, as you might end up rushing a decision and maybe moving for the wrong reasons. So like I've said, explore things internally and really think long and hard what it is you're looking for. We, for example, with some of the briefs we get from our managers, you know, we're very fortunate that we've been in this legal space for such a long time, and as a team we only specialize in legal, so we often have really good briefings from managers about the role, so we can bring the job description to life. But certainly nothing beats an interview where you get the chance to understand more about the manager's plans for the team and how this role could set you up on your career path. So yeah, I think just certainly keep open-minded. You know, it's impossible to put everything on a job description. Certainly, you know, also firms with their website, again, there's lots of information on there on culture, but again, unless you have that meeting, that's the real test when you're going to get an understanding of what the culture's like, etc. The point I mentioned about being open-minded with interviews, definitely, as I said, the common pattern we're starting to notice is sort of a mix of online and face-to-face. So again, just be open-minded that, you know, things are opening up, and there is an expectation with some clients to do potentially some of the interviews in person. And I guess the last point is just sort of talk to us, or talk to a specialist. You know, we're market leaders in our area. We've got a lot of experience between all of us in the team. And I guess, you know, for example, all this data that we're able to get from our finance leaders and HR. So I guess just ask us for advice, you know, reach out, even if you're not sure you're looking to move, but would just like a discussion on salaries or just advice. We work with most of the top 100 US firms and boutiques. So, you know, if you want any advice, obviously, yeah, do reach out.
Thank you, Michelle, and thank you everyone for staying and listening to the results and also the advice that Michelle has just passed on as well. I appreciate we might just have about 10 minutes before we conclude with today's webinar session. So what we'll initially do first is go through some questions that we have been emailed in, and we'll cover that initially, and then hopefully if there is any additional time, we'll see if there's any extra questions that have been sent through today. So the first question that we've had is from an individual asking, I've not had a counteroffer in the past, but have seen colleagues be counteroffered at the firm. What advice would you provide to someone that is being counteroffered in their current place for what they're looking for? So Michelle, would you like to cover maybe a couple of points around that question?
Yeah, due to time, and it is such a big topic, so we have actually compiled some information on this, so we can happily send it through. But yeah, really brief, I would just say, like we've touched on, there's proof it is a really busy market. So great if you are a job seeker. Bad news if you're a firm, to a degree, because there is a shortage of good people and obviously lots of competition with people looking, and lots looking for the same thing. You know, as we know, a lot of firms desire the legal finance experience already. So I guess following on what I was saying, when you're searching for a job, about being open-minded, being prepared, I would definitely, and we as a team would say the same for a counter offer. Expect it, basically. So when you're thinking about your job search, that's something really, really worth considering. What is important to you? What are your motivators? I guess, why did you start looking in the first place? I think some people don't consider it. Maybe they've never had a counter offer before, but the market we're in now is very different than when you potentially were looking for a job previously. So I guess it's just really thinking, what were you looking for at the beginning, and why you started to look. I guess a key thing to say, often a counteroffer is a knee-jerk reaction from an employer. Obviously they don't want to lose you, and it is quite a rush decision what they're able to offer. So I guess, how prepared are they for it, and is what they're offering really a reality? And I guess the key thing with you preparing for it is that often, you know, if you do get a job offer, you're often under pressure to make a decision on that, and then you're now faced with another offer at your current firm. And I guess if you are prepared, you know, nobody knows what their current firm's going to do until you do resign, but if you have prepared in advance, I guess it can help you. Nobody wants to make the wrong decision and potentially be looking back thinking, what if I'd stayed, what if I'd moved? Just briefly, a key statistic which is shocking, it remains really high, but over 70% of individuals that accept a counteroffer reapproach us within a year looking for a new opportunity. So often the counteroffer, not always the case, can sometimes be just a short-term fix, and potentially the reasons you wanted to move in the first place do remain. I mean, as I said, it doesn't always happen. Sometimes new opportunities are offered that potentially the person wasn't aware of internally. So it could be genuinely a really good decision to stay where they are. But yeah, in short, it's a big, big topic. So I'll wrap it up there, but be prepared for it, expect it in this busy market, and we've got further information we can help you with.
Thank you for that, Michelle. Hopefully that was useful. And the next question that we have also had that's been sent in was around the market. So the market is looking very busy. Would you predict it to be this busy for the rest of this year or in 2023? So I'm more than happy to cover that question. So from our end, I guess we wouldn't be able to predict exactly how things will be looking, how long things will be remaining, and that's quite hard to guarantee at any given time. But the market looks to be quite busy right now, as Michelle mentioned. Everyone's been seeing it will remain to be looking to be quite busy as well, as you've seen in the results with the large percentage of additional headcount that firms are looking for as well. So that will take some time when we're looking for that many individuals as a growth within firms. So professional services, the legal sector has been very robust over the period of initially when COVID hit as well. So generally it tends to be quite robust on that side. So we think from our end, the next 12 to 18 months will probably remain to be quite busy as firms look to expand, grow, individuals or job seekers that haven't moved opportunities in the last 2.5 years look to then move, which will create replacement opportunities as well. So this will come in from those that from firms that haven't hired in 2020 and 2021, but also individuals that haven't moved in 2020 and 2021 as well. But as I mentioned right at the start of the answering the question, we wouldn't know exactly 100% when this will stay up until or when this will end. But if you're considering, if you're thinking about new opportunities, new challenges, as Michelle mentioned, definitely speak to your manager, definitely see what there is going on internally. There are opportunities that we're receiving that could easily be things that are coming up at your firm. So definitely keep that open conversation with where you're currently based. If then you feel it's time for me to move to another opportunity, I would like something brand new, then as you know, it is a very buoyant market. It is a very candidate driven market right now. So it is a good period to seek that potential new challenge as well, if it's not available with what you're currently looking at with the opportunities internally as well. But in terms of questions, I'll just have a quick look. At questions that we've had come in from the chat. So we've had a question come in, how active is the contract market? So I'm happy to cover a couple of points, Michelle, if you'd like, you can. So our colleague Olivia, I'll bring up the contact details in a moment again as well. She specializes within the interim contract and also senior appointments as well. But contract is something that she has been doing pretty much most of her career. So I'm sure she can go into a lot more detail around that. But we have seen there's been an increase in contract positions, definitely across all levels, whether it's coming up as maternity leave covers, or even requiring someone to come in and support, especially in this time as we're going towards year end for quite a few firms as well. So those opportunities do come in generally in billing as well, could be in the cashiering team. Contract roles, as I've mentioned a couple of slides previously, and Michelle mentioned on systems, as firms will look to upgrade, look to have re-implementations, look to have those project work. That's where there will be, and there is currently, more contract work within systems or potentially business analyst opportunities as well. But is there anything else that you'd like to touch upon on how the contract market is currently looking like, Michelle?
No, agree with you, the same. Yeah, no, I think your comments are valid.
Oh, brilliant, sounds great. Well, any other questions, more than happy for you to send them across to us. I appreciate we've got about 2 minutes till we finish up, and really appreciate everyone taking their time and still staying with us. So moving on to contacts page, here's the rest of the team. Like I've mentioned, feel free to reach out to me or Michelle after the webinar if you've got any questions or any comments, or how you thought it had gone, or if you were surprised by any of the results as well. There's the rest of the team as well you're more than happy to reach out to and contact as well. So thank you so much for staying with us. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your lunch break to actually sit and listen to our webinar and our results as well. Hopefully you found it quite useful. Any additional questions, like I mentioned from the start, feel free to send it through to us. We have recorded this webinar, like I mentioned in the beginning, so we will send that recording through to you, whether you have joined us today or you've just signed up. So if you missed out the start or missed out on the questions, then you will receive this, the details. We are also finalising our revised salary guides and also our sector report as well. So once that has been completed, we will also update you around that information. But from my side, thank you very much for joining us.
Yes, thank you so much. I hope you found it beneficial. And like Samaya said, please feel free to reach out with any questions or feedback. And I guess just have a great rest of the Friday and a lovely weekend.
Thank you. Have a good weekend, everyone. Bye.
Bye.